And he goes, they suspended democracy. They've been telling us for 35 years we're living in a democracy, but now we see everything is fake.
This is our most troubled moment in 35 years because it's been 35 years since the revolutions, when people revolted against the communist regime and went on the streets to ask for democracy, to ask for free elections. I will probably get arrested and
I have a team in Romania. I used to go to Bucharest a lot. I spent months and months in Bucharest. I love the country. I love the people. That was many years ago. I still have a team now. I actually called one of my team members. His name is Vlad, and I asked him to tell me his thoughts on what happened in Romania. And he goes, "They suspended democracy. They've been telling us for 35 years we're living in a democracy, but now we see everything is fake. People are protesting in silence." Essentially, what he means is they will vote for Georgescu even more in January. That's his stance. But Simion, you're head of the AUR party. You were one of the larger parties in Romania. And I've been told that if Georgescu does become president, you're likely going to be prime minister. Obviously,
Prime
that's
Minister.
speculating. Um, can you tell me more about what's happening in Romania, a country bordering Ukraine and a country of a population of almost 20 million?
So yes, Vlad is right. Democracy is literally suspended in Romania. This is our most troubled moment in 35 years because it's been 35 years since the revolutions, when people revolted against the communist regime and went on the streets to ask for democracy, to ask for free elections, to riot against the regime. And we are now on 21 December, and it's exactly 35 years since then. And it was a shocking decision. I'm talking now not as a representative of Romania's growing conservative movement, but as a voice for millions of Romanians whose faith in democracy is being systematically dismantled. They organized all rounds of elections. We had in June local elections, European elections, now in November and December, parliamentary and presidential elections. So the government had all the instruments in their hands to fraud these elections. Despite of this, despite having all the instruments they needed in organizing the elections, they paid tens of millions of euros to the televisions. They named the heads of the secret services. They named the heads of the electoral authority. They lost these elections. In June, it all started in June by unconstitutionally mixing European elections with local elections because they were scared that our will send many MEPs to the European Parliament. They have many mayors out of 3,200 municipalities in Romania. They rule in 3,000 municipalities. I'm talking about the socialists and the liberals who are affiliated at the European level at EPP. So they organized the elections, they lost the elections, and despite of this, there was no democratic transition of power. You would expect this from third world countries like Papua New Guinea, like Malawi, like Abkhazia or other states where this happened until now. We don't have, this is unprecedented. We don't have any precedent like this in the European Union. In Austria, a thing like this happened in 2016 when the ecologist candidate for the presidency of Austria fought with the FPO candidate, and the difference was very small, and they decided to repeat the second round. But in our country, the Constitutional Court, which is made up not of judges from the judicial system, but of members named by the current president, by President Iohannis, and by the Liberal and the Socialist parties. The Constitutional Court first on Monday approved and gave a sentence that the first round is valid. And then in the same week, on Friday, when the voting started, said that the elections are annulled and we have to repeat the elections somewhere in the future. We don't know when, and we don't know why, because not a shred of evidence of external interference has been presented to the public eye.
So essentially, what you have is a country that neighbors Ukraine have an election, and then I compare the outcome similar to what happened in 2016 with President Trump. So you had
Yes.
these allegations of Russian interference, which obviously later turned out to be false. But what happened in Romania is it went further than that. So in the US, they challenged the democratic system, but democracy prevailed in the world's biggest democracy.
Yes.
In another seemingly large democracy in Europe, democracy seems to have failed. So the Supreme Court, which is appointed by the incumbent, by the current president, 9 judges of the Constitutional Court were appointed by President Klaus
Iohannis. Klaus Iohannis, who is ethnically German, Romanian citizen.
How many of these 9 judges in the court did he appoint?
3 of them were appointed by him, and the rest of 6, the current government, which is made up of socialists, liberals, and ethnic Hungarians.
His alliance.
His alliance, yes, his
So
governmental
essentially, so all 9 judges in that court were appointed by the president and his political parties and allies.
And they are not judges; they are former politicians, many of them.
Wow! So you got former politicians, 9 of them, that essentially voted to cancel the vote of
Yes.
10 million Romanians.
10
which is
million
about
out
50
of 19
over 50
million.
over 50% turnout.
Yes, yes.
And then the allegations they made was Russian interference. Now, when I looked into it, and I started looking into this claim of Russian interference because I've seen this playbook before. When I've looked into it, essentially the proof is 25,000 TikTok accounts backing the winner, Georgescu,
Yes.
who should be, who technically, but was likely to be president considering the margin he won in the first round of elections. And
considering that I supported Mr. Georgescu because I also was a candidate in the presidency, and I showed my support for Mr. Georgescu. All the opinion polls suggested that Mr. Georgescu would have won, and we already had the ballots in the second round, because when the decision of the Constitutional Court was taken on that Friday, the Romanians abroad could have voted, and many of them voted. So on the very first day of the presidential elections for Romanians abroad, we had this decision. Some people already casted their votes, and our guys from AUR party started counting when the decision came with the other members of the polling station, started counting the results until then. And the results were 55% for Georgescu.
Wow. And I want to go back to the claims, the alleged proof.
Yes.
So from what I've seen, it's just a bunch, and I want to try to look at this as objectively as possible. They say a lot of TikTok accounts suddenly became active. They were mostly created around 2016, or they've been in about 2016, and they've just become active in that period as during the election.
But TikTok didn't exist in 2016.
Okay, I didn't know that. So a lot of the accounts, I didn't know that. A lot of the accounts were created. That is crazy. They were created when TikTok existed, and then they weren't active until the election, when it's normal for people to be active when they're voting and they're backing the nominee they want to vote for. So for me, go ahead.
And nobody in Romania said something about Russia. They said in some information that were declassified from the secret services that was that an statal actor was involved. The only one who said something about Russia was Antony Blinken from the US Department of State, who said that the Romanian counterpart informs them that Russia was involved. So basically, we don't have any proof of Russia meddling with the elections, except this text from Antony Blinken, who is an authority in our country, but who is in his last day of mandate.
So you've got the US Secretary of State that mentioned Russia, not even a Romanian official that mentioned Russia.
Yes.
Now, obviously, a lot of people it was Russia, considering what the references made to Moldova, for example.
Yes.
But I want to go back to the evidence. So number one is 25,000 accounts. They were all created when TikTok was created, and they all became active before the election, which you'd expect. Now, that doesn't seem. So I had someone look into it, and they said that 25,000 accounts is not a lot for a population of 19 million people during a presidential election. During the US presidential election, everyone was on X. X was because the town hall where everyone was voicing their opinion, debating, going on spaces, going on different shows and tweeting their opinion and commenting. So for me, that doesn't sound that concerning of a claim.
It is not, because everybody started using trolls and bots in the political campaigns. In Romania, we don't use X on a large scale. It's not that popular, but we use Facebook and TikTok. I'm the most popular political figure on Facebook and TikTok, and there were ordinary people that were supporting Mr. Georgescu and myself in this campaign by leaving comments, and the so-called proofs that were that there were some trolls, bots favoring Mr. Georgescu, which there were not, because 2,100,000 people voted for Mr. Georgescu, 1,300,000 people voted for me. So there were real persons. They say there were the algorithm of TikTok was helping Mr. Georgescu. Yes, the algorithm of social networks help the ones who have support, public support from the citizens. This is how the social network works. I was in Strasbourg at the beginning of this week and talked with many MEPs, friends of mine. And I saw other MEPs that were talking at the European Parliament about this problem. One of them was an MEP from Cyprus who got 20% of the votes only from social networks. And the problem of the establishment in Romania is how did Georgescu manage to make 2,100,000 votes without spending any money by declaring zero euros budget. And the MEP from Cyprus, who took 20% of the votes, like in Georgescu's case, but in European parliamentary elections, said, this is how I did it also in Cyprus. I had my accounts that were promoting me. I didn't pay anything to Facebook or to X or to TikTok. It was the algorithm, but it was the citizens that were campaigning on these social networks. So it's not the involvement of some fake accounts. It's not the involvement of Twitter, TikTok, or Facebook. It's masses that start communicating. So it's normal.
And then a good example of people that manage to get a lot of traction without spending any money on social media are the Tates, which are that I interviewed them a few days ago. Again, they have their own story in Romania and what they're dealing with the Romanian legal system. But
They were a
they
victim
became
of the judicial system in Romania, the same judicial system that is now attacking and trying to find proofs on this Georgescu case. They are trying to invent some proofs, making abuses. The same judicial system that 3 days before the European elections in June arrested my whole campaign team to launch some accusations that we were forging signatures and we are like criminals, and we were arrested 3 days before these elections in June. So we are facing a corrupt and authoritarian regime without any, how you call it in Brussels, any rule of law. You don't have the rule of law here in Romania, and you could easily pressure from abroad the Romanian authorities in a case like the Tates, in a case of getting a majority for the European Parliament and for Ursula von der Leyen and for the globalist political parties. We are the most important sovereignist, patriotic political party here in Romania. And we are a victim of this manipulation through TV stations. They were asking me, how is it possible that you can make propaganda and manipulation through social media? And I asked them, but why do you make propaganda and manipulation on the TV stations that you own? Because for them,
it seems like just a marketing strategy that worked well. You know, I referenced the Tates because they played social media really well. They became, you know,
yes,
became the most popular person, or most Googled person at one stage. All of it through social media, through mainly TikTok. But I want to dig into the claims a bit further, because this is looking more and more. I've interviewed Prime Minister Imran Khan, who was jailed in Pakistan, and now I found out that your own party members were in June.
yes,
And it reminds me also in Brazil, where Brazil cracked on X, like right down on President Bolsonaro, who was on my show as well. And Brazil is the fourth biggest democracy. Pakistan is one of the biggest democracies, or quote unquote democracies. And I'm starting to get very worried about Romania, a country that I love. I've been there many times. Can we dig into the claims further? Like, is there any substance to them? Is there any substance where at least we can question maybe there's some sort of interference? So another claim here is that the rates of what some of these influencers were paid, and they were paid about €1,000 per promotional video. But
yes.
if I have to think of this, for an influencer, that seems like a pretty market standard rate. I don't know how that is linked to foreign interference.
Now, the globalist fact checkers and the globalist websites and journals started digging into the campaign of Mr. Georgescu. And yesterday, this is an accurate situation, the one that you described. Over 100 micro-influencers were approached on a website of an agency to create videos of support for a presidential candidate with the hashtag, I don't know, equilibrium and experience or something, verticality or something like this. I don't remember the hashtag in Romanian. Now, these fact checkers and news teams discovered that this campaign wasn't actually paid by Georgescu or by anyone in Georgescu's team. This campaign existed and it was paid from the public Romanian budget by the party of the incumbent president, by the party of President Iohannis, who paid this money officially in order to slander me and in order to get me down on the voting process. So the only proof about money was about paying these influencers, and now proofs are showing up. They paid this campaign, and they tried to influence through these micro influencers the Romanian society.
So they've paid these influencers to try to promote Georgescu,
Yes,
but to try to diminish your popularity because your party, I don't know if it doubled or increased significantly in
we are
terms
the
of
second largest party in Romania right now after the
and
parliamentary elections.
allied with Georgescu.
Yes, and what did they fought by doing this? Georgescu didn't have any chances. There were a couple of sovereignist candidates. Georgescu showed up on their radar, on their polls, with 1%, 2% of the votes. 1 month, 1.5 months before the elections. So they said, okay, how can we diminish the chances of Simion? Let's raise some sovereignist voices. So it backfired on them. But now we have a collaboration and a history with Mr. Georgescu. He was our proposal of Prime Minister. So we must cancel democracy if the guy that won the elections is not our candidate. It seems to be the situation with the establishment, with the current status quo in Romania.
So from everything we've gone through so far, there doesn't seem to be any evidence of two things. First, there doesn't seem to be any evidence that there was any foreign meddling. And you just told me that these 100 influencers were paid by
The liberals.
the incumbent party, the
Yes.
liberals, the people against Georgescu. But even if it was another party, even if it was your party or anyone else, just 100 influencers getting paid, it's such a small scale for a population of 19 million. And number two is there doesn't seem to be anything to prove that these TikTok accounts even have much of an impact on the election. Like there's no correlation or no causation whatsoever. I don't understand how they could do this and how the Romanian public could be okay with this when they look at the quote unquote evidence and the media as well. The media has portrayed this as this is 100% Russian interference, but it doesn't take long to go through the documents and see there is no real proof.
It's just opinions from some secret services.
They've even said it correlates with Moldova as if that's evidence. I don't know how it correlates with Moldova, where Moldova also had accounts created in 2016 when TikTok was created and became active before an election. I assume that's the only correlation.
They don't have any shred of evidence. They tried to manipulate the public opinion even further by taking some of the bodyguards of Mr. Georgescu and saying they are legionnaires. This means in the public opinion in Romania that they are supporters of the Iron Guard in interbellic period. But the reality is different, that these so-called legionnaires and mercenaries were fighters in the Légion étrangère the foreign legion of the French state. They had the experience working there. So they are presenting at the mainstream media, at the majority of the TV stations, proofs about some sort of coup d'etat that Georgescu was preparing, like a revolution that Georgescu was preparing, but again without any proof. Now we have one or two TV stations that is presenting the truth, and this TV station, Realitatea, receives every day fines from the public authorities for presenting also the story of Mr. Georgescu. Even more, in an authoritarian regime, similar to the regime of Lukashenko in Belarus, in my opinion, we have people that are stopped in traffic and taken to the prosecutors, or being put in judiciary control, like in the case of states. I have one MP that was going in his constituency, and he was stopped in traffic by policemen, and he was given judiciary control for stating after the elections that these buildings, these official buildings, should fall, and this is enough proof for them that he incited to hate, he incited to riots, and now he is under control. This is absolutely crazy. They are using the similar labels that I
What
saw.
do you mean? What do you mean by under control? He's not under control.
He must go every day at the police station because he made a statement about these public buildings that should be teared down.
So essentially, anyone they're trying to crack down on any speech that contradicts their narrative.
Typically
They're
for
cracking down on the media as
dictatorship.
well.
Yes. And the problem, and I talked with our Polish, our Italian, our French counterparts from sovereignist parties around Europe. The problem is that this is a testing polygon, in our opinion. If they can manage to do this in Romania, we will have in May presidential elections in Poland, and they control through Soros foundations, through open society foundations, they control the judiciary system, and they can repeat, having the precedent from Bucharest, they can repeat this situation in Warsaw, for example, and everywhere across Europe, where people are fed up with these globalist policies and want to have patriots in power. This happened, and I'm sure this happened because I talked with AfD guys, I talked with FPO guys in Austria. I'm very good friends with Law and Justice from Poland. If we would have had in June European elections, free European elections, I'm sure Ursula von der Leyen wouldn't have been elected, wouldn't have a majority to be elected as the president of the European Council.
So you're saying the FD party has similar concerns for Germany, and parties in Poland and Austria have similar concerns?
For sure, we are well connected with all of these parties. We are some sort of Trumpist parties. We heard the voice of President Trump in UN and his speech about the future that belongs to patriots. And if you want to be a patriot for your country, you must fight for freedom. So we got inspired by the most powerful men in the planet, politically speaking, and we created our party, and in a similar way, other parties across Europe, and we are now in the verge of taking power, and we discovered that we don't live any longer in a democracy. For me, it's extremely important that our strategic partner, the United States, and the new Trump administration knows exactly what happened here. And it's important to understand that the Romanian establishment almost doesn't speak at all about the so-called foreign meddling, because they don't have any proof, like you just described to your audience.
So Elon put out a tweet or a comment. He says, "How can a judge cancel an election and not be considered a dictator?" I'll expand by saying that it seems, and what you're saying actually, it seems that Romania is a testing ground for something that could be implemented in other democracies in Europe, and other countries have that same concern. So one could say, and similar to when I said in Brazil, I said the same thing about Brazil a few months ago. They didn't like it at all. Is that democracy is at stake? My question is, what's next? What is the process next? The election results were cancelled, but it's going to rerun in January. The president will remain president, even though his
No, stop there. Because Elon also tweeted, when will the new elections be held? And nobody knows. So today, 21st December, exactly 35 years since the Romanian Revolution, the mandate of the president of Romania has expired. Our constitution foresees two very clear situations in which the mandate could be extended: if you are in a war or in a catastrophe, and only if you have a special law. We are not now in those situations. However, the incumbent president, President Iohannis, is still in office and invited us tomorrow. You will air this probably Sunday. So we are invited Sunday at negotiations about the incumbent President Iohannis to name a new prime minister. But our position is very clear and based on the constitution, which is the supreme law for us, and we should respect the rules that we all agreed on. Our position is that Iohannis is no longer the president of Romania, and our constitution says that for a period of 3 months, the president of the Senate takes the mandate of the president. So probably on Sunday, when you see this material, we will go to have negotiations about the next government with President-elect Georgescu, because we recognize the will of the people and the vote of the people. We broke the normal constitution rules. We didn't break it, but they are broken. So now we have to have elections as soon as possible, but the establishment in Romania don't want to organize them until May or maybe June, in order to change the public opinion that is now, if we go to the votes, will vote 75% for Mr. Georgescu. So nobody knows when will be the new elections held.
and in that time, there's a power vacuum. Iohannis should not be president because his term ends today. There is no war and there's no catastrophe. And
Yes,
Georgescu is not president because the elections were cancelled.
yes, it's like crazy with This is a coup d'etat. They say Iohannis can remain in power until the new president is elected, but nobody can say how much time he can remain in power. Maybe he wants to remain in power 4 years, 5 years. It's truly
But the
crazy.
constitution does not allow him to remain in power if there's no president, unless they call that a catastrophe. Is that what they're trying to say?
Correct. We have clear articles in our constitution.
So why is this happening in your opinion? Why do you think this whole meddling and this whole plan and obviously Blinken made comments mentioning Russia? Could we link this to what's happening in Ukraine, to see a country bordering Ukraine shift their stance on the war? Could this be an attempt to jeopardize a potential peace deal? As I think Georgescu himself said that.
Yes, Georgescu said that. I don't have more informations, more accurate informations.
But what's your opinion from what you've heard?
Romania sent lots and lots of weapons in the Ukrainian-Russian war. None of this spending on military aid was being transparent. The establishment in Romania was scared by the public opinion and didn't want the Romanians to know how much we are spending to help Ukrainians. So, in my opinion, they were scared and they were ordered by Ursula von der Leyen, by Emmanuel Macron, and other globalists to solve the problem somehow and to hold on to their chair. This is why the European Commission, this is why other institutions at the European level didn't react and practically validated the coup d'etat and the strike against democracy that was given here. I was in the European Parliament, I talked with our partners, but unfortunately we don't have a majority in the European Parliament. And I told you why, because in my opinion, we didn't have free elections at the moment, at the beginning of June in the European countries. Slowly by slowly, we must win this fight, but peacefully. Me and also Mr. Georgescu had public appeals to the Romanian public not to go out on the streets because the current establishment was preparing to make violences and was prepared to justify the state of emergency and the catastrophe through violences and through the possibility of a civil war.
So when I asked my friend Vlad, I asked him like, why are people not protesting on the streets like they did in Georgia? And what he said, essentially what you've just hinted at now, is that he's worried that the government will use that as a pretext to declare a catastrophe.
Because we are a
when
police state.
violence.
Because the public order institutions were prepared to infiltrate civilians through the protesters. They have done this many times. And it's better to show our view at the ballot when they are organized. We worked a lot. We are a young party. We were formed in 2019. And we worked a lot from the grassroots, from zero to build an infrastructure. And now we have the infrastructure necessary to stop the voting fraud. We have 20,000 people in the voting stations that can report on our application if any fraud is committed during the voting process. So we are now a danger to this system who was used since the Soviet period to steal the votes and steal the will of the people. They had the system arranged that you could vote one candidate and like Trump in 2020, you could get another result through. In the States, it was correspondence votes. In our situation in Romania, votes were stolen at the voting stations. So we have this infrastructure that assures our voters that the voting fraud won't happen.
Can you correct me if I'm wrong, but even your rival, Miss Lasconi, she will be critical of what happened as well, and she's your rival. Is that correct?
Of course, she was the globalist candidate, but she wasn't expected. She didn't expect this, and any common sense analyst would say this is incredible, unprecedented, and this shouldn't have happened. And in my opinion, Madam Lasconi is only a victim that was put by the globalist forces to be a candidate.
Said the following. She said, the past 35 years we have had democracy, but government and corrupt politicians have failed to deliver for the Romanian people. I feel we have 15 years to go, maybe less, where no one wants to go, dictatorship. So you essentially have your rival, the person that's going against Georgescu, also criticize, not directly, but kind of indirectly criticize what just happened.
Yes.
So this is now bipartisan, and I don't see how that could work. There's a great analysis here. I'm going to read out a quote here by Arnaud Bertrand, who said that on X. He said, that's the precedent being set here, where elections can be invalidated, not based on proven fraud or manipulation, because as we said, we couldn't find proof, but on the mere existence of organized social media campaigning that authorities find suspicious. So it could be anything, whether it's bots, which bots happen on different social media platforms all the time, and they don't have much of an impact anyway. Influencers getting paid, which influencers get paid. And we saw even in the US, the FBI found that there was some YouTube channel that was paid by a Russian entrepreneur that's linked to the government, if you remember. And that they didn't invalidate they can launch an investigation. They didn't invalidate the elections. And that was more than what you guys have.
Of course.
So it says, Arnaud says it's a dangerous path where largely unsubstantiated fears of foreign interference can be used to override actual voter choices, ironically damaging democracy for far more than any social media campaign could. And what you had now in Romania is 9 unelected officials, or not unelected by the people, elected by the incumbents in the government, cancel an entire election based on declassified files of, I wouldn't say proof, but claims of people being active on TikTok, supporting the candidate that won, Georgescu. TikTok accounts getting paid. Doesn't matter by who. But what you're saying is the opponents of Georgescu that bring you down. My next question to you is...
You said it better than me.
But my last question is, and from, again, a place of concern as someone that's spent a lot of time in Romania, is I had an interview with the Tates, as you know, and now we're having a discussion. Looking at those two instances, Romania, I'm worried to say, Romania is now, I'm having a chat to my team. There's countries I don't go to for security purposes. Pakistan, Brazil, even the UK, I'm worried a bit about now as well. And after my interview with Tates, I'm like, it's still fine. I went there when I'm in person. But now after this, I'm adding Romania to the countries where it's just too concerning for people that are politically loud, that have a loud voice, to even go if they're questioning the establishment.
Mario, please come to Romania. You will be well received here. As you know, we are very hospitable. We take care of our guests the proper way.
And people you would, but I worry that there's no democracy.
You are not a danger to the establishment, and they are scared of us. I'm now the second largest party in Romania. We are keeping things under control. We are trying to move wisely ahead.
Are you worried? Are you worried you might get arrested? Or Georgescu?
I will probably get arrested, and Mr. Georgescu is probably getting arrested. If you at the international level, because I am waiting for the next Trump administration. I am waiting for Elon, other right wing influencers, our colleagues from the political groups inside the European Parliament, Patriots of Europe and European Conservatives and Reformists, to take a stand. It's our God-given right for freedom. It's our work in this network of political parties that are for freedom and for democracy. And we are Christian Orthodox here in Romania, as you know. We believe in God, and we believe in this problem that truth will prevail, and we will win. We don't have the instruments of power, but this is why I rushed from the parliamentary meeting to respond to your questions.
Thank you.
I think we will manage, our generation, to get back power in our countries, to be our own masters, and to take freedom back. This is why I'm involved in politics, not for me, but to be against them and to destroy their plans. And as well as free people join together, we will win.
Mr. Simion, this is not a right versus left issue. It's an issue of democracy versus dictatorship. I appreciate you making the time for
100%.
this interview. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it, and good luck moving
Thank you,
forward.
Mario.